Approximately 1,200 people go missing on the Appalachian Trail each year. Stretching over 2,000 miles long, it's very easy to get turned around and lose direction of your current position. Facing the harsh elements of a dense forest, every move you make is critical to survival. Among the many that have gone missing on the trail, one stands out as being particularly interesting. An elderly woman who briefly stepped away to use the bathroom and never returned. Let's explore the mysterious disappearance of Gerry Largay and why this photo is way more disturbing than it might appear. Geraldine Largay, age 68, was a retired Air Force nurse that lived in Tennessee. She was happily married with one child who was in the golden years of her life. Enjoying retirement, she found a fond interest in hiking local trails around the area to stay in shape and enjoy the beauty of nature. She did this so much that she actually became well known in the local hiking community, adopting the nickname Inchworm. Making friends and fully embracing her new lifestyle, Gerry wanted to start checking off boxes on her bucket list, one of which was actually hiking the Appalachian Trail. The Appalachian Trail is a big deal in the hiking community. The 2,000-mile hike isn't an easy one at all, and many only aspire to one day completing the achievement. The trail usually takes between 5 to 7 months to traverse, with only 1 in 4 attempters actually succeeding. It truly is a dream to those obsessed with hiking, and only those most passionate are willing to endure the journey. With age catching up to Gerry, she wanted to attempt the Appalachian Trail while she was still able to. She asked her husband to tag along, as a woman her age clearly couldn't carry all the equipment needed to finish the trip. However, he was a little bit hesitant. Often tagging along just to keep his wife company, he wasn't as passionate for hiking as his other half. He understood how much hiking the trail meant to her, and wanting to support any dream she had, he happily accepted, and they began to plan the trip. The journey was comprised of Gerry, her husband, and her friend Jane Lee. Jane and Gerry would hike the trail together, while Gerry's husband would drive from checkpoint to checkpoint, offering daily supply runs for the two during the entire trip. Both women spoke with their doctors to determine if the hike was safe, considering their age, and after receiving approval, put the plan in motion. On April 13th, the three would travel to Harper's Ferry in West Virginia, where they would take their first steps onto Appalachian Trail soil, unaware that they may never escape. For the better half of the journey, everything was fantastic. The two women were having the time of their lives, making many friends and memories along the way. Gerry's husband would follow along, being the supportive man that he was, and there were relatively no complications. They traveled over 1,000 miles, and Gerry was looking fantastic. While some climbs were definitely a struggle, many noted that they had no worries regarding Gerry's age and health, stating that she seemed to be in excellent physical condition. However, towards the second half of the journey, they faced a complication that would put the entire completion of the hike in jeopardy. Jane had an urgent family emergency. She found out that her daughter fractured her ankle and must abandon the trip as she was needed back at home. At a crossroads of what to do, Gerry spoke with her husband and decided to finish the trip by herself. She would meet with her husband more often to ensure that everything was okay, and got by rather well on her own. She made many hiking companions who would aid her in her now solo journey, two of which were Dottie Rust and Regina Clark. These two met Gerry at a very rugged section of the trail. Regina even made a comment saying, "God, if you were even 6 feet off the trail, you'd probably be a goner." Luckily, the group made it by just fine, even snapping a photo of Gerry to commemorate her achievement on the hike. However, this photo would never be looked upon in admiration. This would be the last photo taken before Gerry went missing. After meeting her husband on the morning of July 21st, Gerry entered the Appalachian Trail at the Route 4 crossing in Sandy River Plantation, near the town of Wrangley. Later that day, she would text her husband once more, saying that she was on top of Saddleback Mountain. The next morning, Gerry would reach the Poplar Ridge Lean-To, a waypoint on the Appalachian Trail, where that final photo was taken. Gerry was planning to hike that day to Spalding Lean-To in Reddington Township, approximately 8 miles to the north. She got through most of the trip in one day, but unfortunately needed to set up camp and finish the remainder on July 23rd. The following day, she continued north where she planned to meet her husband again, who was waiting for her at the Route 27 crossing. However, somewhere during this journey, Gerry would go missing. After hours of waiting, Gerry's husband finally called the police and requested a search party to look for his missing wife. Luckily for him, most people who go missing on the Appalachian Trail are quickly found. Despite the large number of people who get lost every year, there have only been about 200 recorded deaths since 1937. The odds of finding a lost hiker were astronomically high. Initially, the search party was comprised of many officials on foot, however that was soon upgraded to include aircrafts and canines. They were able to pinpoint a general location, concluding that Gerry must have gone astray between Poplar Leanto and Lone Mountain, and deployed most of their units to search in that area. During this time, officials also spoke with nearby hikers on the trail, hoping somebody might have seen Gerry during her disappearance. The team searched high and low, exploring almost the entirety of her suspected location. However, the search efforts proved futile. Many are located within 24 hours, and virtually all are found within 48 hours. Only a fraction of 1% of lost hikers remain missing. However, that small number unfortunately now included Gerry Largay, the 66-year-old hiker from Brentwood, Tennessee. Despite the suspended search party, her investigation would still go on, as her disappearance raised a lot of questions. This wasn't just some inexperienced hiker. Gerry was practically an expert and knew more than well not to go exploring off trail. She was well versed in proper protocols if lost and was expected to navigate the situation appropriately. With much less experienced hikers being found, Gerry's disappearance was worrying. Could she have been kidnapped? Or even worse, killed? This ascended the case of Gerry Largay to something much more than a typical missing person. This was now a mystery that many were determined to solve. As time passed, the internet would come together to form crazy and outlandish conspiracies for what might have happened to Gerry during her disappearance. Some argue she was killed, others think she was kidnapped, and even more wild theories link Gerry's disappearance to Bigfoot. Regardless of your thoughts, the world was still baffled by how such an experienced hiker could just simply vanish off the face of the earth. That was until October 14th of 2015. 26 months after her disappearance. On property owned by the US Navy, close to the Appalachian Trail, a contractor explored the area for a mandatory forestry survey. During his travels, he encountered a collection of rubble that appeared to be an abandoned campsite in a restricted part of the forest, close by the trail. Out of curiosity, the contractor decided to explore this site and found evidence of it currently being occupied. He found personal items scattered around the ground, however the tent itself was collapsed. It was clear no one was currently staying here, however who would just up and leave their entire campsite behind? He began to search further, moving around the collapsed tent to find any other information, until he felt what appeared to be an occupied sleeping bag from within the rubble. It was here he pulled out the remains of Gerry Largay, with nothing but a hollow skull peeking out from the top of the sleeping bag. Gerry was found dead, less than a mile from the Appalachian Trail. While there was certainly some relief to finally get closure about what happened to Gerry Largay, this honestly raised more questions than it answered. Gerry was found within the perimeter of the search party. Between countless volunteers, aircrafts, and canines, how could nobody have spotted Gerry? After reviewing the paths taken by the police, it was even determined that at multiple points, a canine search party could have been as close as 100 feet to Gerry within the first few days of her being lost. More unlikely than this, it seemed practically impossible that one party wouldn't hear the calls or screams from the other. I'm so sure that for days on end, this section of the Appalachian Trail was ringing with calls for Gerry. None of this adds up. Gerry was located a little under a mile away from the trail, about 30 minutes or so. So is it possible that maybe she was killed and placed here, explaining why no one heard the others call? Well, no. At least that's very unlikely. The most depressing and disturbing parts about this case actually come from what was found at the campsite where Gerry was stationed at. Checking her phone, we can start to piece together exactly what happened that caused her disappearance. On the day she went missing, she sent a series of texts to her husband saying, "In some trouble. Got off trail to go to the bathroom, now lost. Can you call AMC to see if a trail maintainer can help me? Somewhere north of the Woods Road." There was unfortunately no signal at this part of the trail, so none of these texts actually made it to her husband. The following day, another text was sent saying, "Lost since yesterday. Off the trail about 3 or 4 miles. Call the police for what to do, please. XOXO. It was noted by her hiking partner Jane that although Gerry was certainly physically capable of finishing the hike, she had moments where she would occasionally become very disoriented, getting mixed up and turned around due to the strain of the hike. It's been assumed that after a tough walk, Gerry went slightly off trail to find a place to use the bathroom and got mixed up on her directions back. This caused her to travel deeper into the woods, continuously making wrong turns trying to get back on path. It's here that her story gets more elaborated on through journal entries she kept during her time lost in the woods. Investigators found a journal at the campsite that showed Gerry documenting each day and keeping notes on ways to get back to the trail. She even drew her own calendar to track what day it was and how many days she'd been lost. In the beginning, the journal was primarily comprised of notes relating to survival. She actually traveled more west in an attempt to reach a higher elevation in hopes of getting a cell phone signal. After a series of unsuccessful texts, she then reached her final location on July 23rd and would stay here for the remainder of her time. She set up her tent under several large hemlock trees with wide branches that unfortunately obscured the view from the sky. She would then stay in this camp until August 18th, writing entries in her journal each day. As time went on, entries in this journal changed from notes on survival to primarily messages to loved ones. At some point during this time, Gerry knew that she would never be found. She wrote small messages and loving words to those closest to her, until her final entry on August 18th that read, "When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Kerry. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I'm dead where you found me, no matter how many years from now." She died shortly after this from a combination of starvation, dehydration, and overall lack of nourishment. Had it been that the search party shifted 100 feet west, a call for Gerry was made at the right moment, or her camp was positioned at a different location, Gerry Largay would have escaped the tomb that was the Appalachian Trail. However, in a series of unfortunate circumstances and unlikely events, Gerry will forever be memorialized by this photo, the last one taken while she was alive on the Appalachian Trail.